straight
Yeah,
rugged
hey, man, I told you.
They
Y'all got up. I thought y'all thought we had.
Y'all want gangsta rap? Oh, we finna show y'all mother gangsta
I
rap.
was starting to bang on the low though, you know what I'm saying? And when I got into 12th grade is when I really started banging, and that's when school really got up, because I said basketball.
I was in a cell basically 24 hours a day, except, you know, the hour that you get out for either to make a phone call or take a shower. You have to choose. You don't get both.
The Game, one of hip-hop's most enduring artists, is often credited with reviving the West Coast rap scene in the 2000s. However, his journey to stardom was anything but smooth. Before he even picked up a pen to write his first verse, Jayshun Terrell The Game Taylor had already lived a life full of trials and tribulations. From multiple stints in prison and dealing drugs just to get by, to being a part of the infamous Bloods gang, The Game's pre-rap life was intense. But it was a near-fatal experience that ultimately pushed him towards music, getting shot 5 times and slipping into a coma for days. Let's delve into the incredible story of The Game. Born on November 29, 1979 in Compton, California, to George Taylor and Lynette Baker, Jayshun was destined to face hardships early on. Both of his parents were involved with the Crips, a notorious Los Angeles-based gang, and struggled with drug addiction. His father was also guilty of his sisters, which led to Jayshun being placed in foster care when he was just 7 years old. Tragedy struck again when he was 13. His older brother Jevin was fatally shot. At 15, Jayshun was reunited with his mother, but his home life remained far from stable. In a revealing interview with MTV News correspondent Sway Calloway in October 2006, The Game described his family as dysfunctional. His older half-brother, George Taylor III, better known as the rapper Big Phase 100, was a leader of the Cedar Block Piru Bloods in West Compton. Jayshun attended Compton High School, where he played basketball and participated in track, but his extracurricular activities extended beyond sports. During high school, Jayshun found himself in trouble with the law, serving 2 prison terms. He first went to prison for stealing a car in the 11th grade and was locked up again a few months later.
I went to jail twice as a teenager, and the other times I think I just got lucky and slid through without detection. Then I went to jail for like stealing the car in the 11th grade, and I ended up going to the county. That was my first time in the county.
Despite these setbacks, he managed to graduate and even earned a basketball scholarship to Washington State University in Pullman, Washington. Unfortunately, his college career was cut short when he was expelled for drug possession. Back in Compton, Jayshun started dealing drugs and officially joined the Bloods alongside his half-brother. Gangbanging was a way of life for him, and he embraced it fully.
But gangbanging was always like first for me, because it's just, I don't know, it was tough. It was hard for me. I liked it. I really loved it, and it was all that I knew.
But everything changed after a fateful night in 2001. According to The Game, his brother Big Phase 100 had strict rules about their drug operations, one of which was to stop selling after midnight so everyone could rest. However, one night, Game decided to break this rule. He was alone at the trap house when there was a knock at the door. Looking through the peephole, he saw a familiar face, a regular customer, so he let his guard down and decided to make a sale.
One of the first rule was just never to sell after midnight, because I mean, it just ain't that important. We get as much off as we can during the day. At midnight, we shut down operation, everybody get a good night's rest, and we back up at the first knock. Through the door, I could see it's him, so I'm like, I'll serve this and then I'm gonna just after this, but let me make this little 20, 30, 40, maybe 50 if you want an 8-ball or something like that.
But when he opened the door, 2 other men appeared with guns drawn. Game's gun was on the kitchen table, and a struggle ensued as one of the intruders went for it. They wrestled on the ground, and Game seemed to have the upper hand until the intruder managed to pull the trigger, shooting him in the chest. Not realizing he had been shot, Game tried to run down the hallway to grab his shotgun, but more bullets hit him, one in the leg and another in the stomach.
Joined him in the tussle and retrieved the gun from him, but he felt it coming, and so his finger was around the trigger of it, so he pulled the trigger, and then I got shot in the chest. I running down the hallway to get my shotgun, my sawed-off from the back room, and he shot twice more, and I got shot in the ankle, and then I got shot in the stomach too.
Lying on the floor, Game thought his life was over and braced himself for the final shot. But when he opened his eyes, the attackers were gone, likely thinking they had got him. Summoning all his strength, Game managed to call 911.
Give me the dome shot or the shot. So I just closed my eyes and I was like, I really told myself, like literally told myself, I was like, damn, So this is it.
That night, he was rushed to the hospital and spent days in a coma. When he woke up, he knew he had to make a change. While recovering in the hospital from those brutal gunshot wounds he sustained in late 2001, Game made a pivotal decision. He told his brother to go out and buy all the classic hip-hop albums. Over the next 5 months, while healing and reflecting, he studied those influential rap records meticulously. This intense study period became the foundation for his transformation into the rapper we all know today. Game's strategy paid off big time. He emerged on the scene with his major label debut album, The Documentary, which skyrocketed to the top of the Billboard 200. The album was a massive success, receiving double platinum certification from the Recording Industry Association of America, RIAA. It also earned him 2 Grammy nominations for Best Rap Song and Best Rap Performance by a Duo or Group for the hit single Hate It or Love It, featuring 50 Cent. His follow-up album in 2006, Doctor's Advocate, also hit the charts hard, cementing his status as a major player in the hip-hop world. Despite his success, the rough side of Game's life didn't exactly vanish. He had several run-ins with the law, showcasing the constant tug-of-war between his past and present. For instance, in May 2005, Game, along with Snoop Dogg and Thaw Dogg Pound, was sued for assaulting a fan on stage at a concert in Auburn, Washington. The accuser, Richard Monroe Jr., claimed he was beaten unconscious by the artist's entourage when he responded to what he believed was an open invite to come on stage. Monroe alleged that Snoop's bodyguards and crew members, including rapper and producer Superfly, attacked him while Snoop and Game stood by without intervening. Monroe's lawsuit demanded a whopping $22 million in damages for battery, negligence, and intentional infliction of emotional distress. This legal drama dragged on until the parties appeared in court in April 2009. Later that year, on October 28, 2005, Game was charged with disorderly conduct and resisting arrest in Greensboro, North Carolina. Police reports indicated that Game's entourage surrounded officers in a threatening manner, prompting mall security to pepper spray them. Allegedly, Game was wearing a full-face Halloween mask, filming shoppers, cursing loudly, and refusing to leave when asked. Game maintained that the police overreacted and insisted he did nothing wrong. Nonetheless, the 5 officers involved in the incident sued Game for defamation and were awarded $5 million in compensatory damages, a decision upheld by the North Carolina Court of Appeals in February 2012. The legal troubles continued. On May 11, 2007, Game was arrested at his home in connection with an incident that occurred during a basketball game in South Los Angeles earlier that year. He was accused of threatening someone with a gun. After a 3-hour search of his home, Game was taken into custody but released the next day after posting $50,000 bail. Fast forward to January 9, 2008, when a Los Angeles judge set February 4th as the start date for Game's trial on assault and weapons charges. By February 11th, Game pleaded no contest to a felony weapons charge and was sentenced to 6 months in jail, 150 hours of community service, and 3 years of probation. Game described this jail stint as 10 times worse than his previous experiences as a teenager. Being a high-profile inmate, he was automatically placed in solitary confinement to avoid potential lawsuits from his family if anything happened to him in prison. This meant he spent almost 24 hours a day in a cell, with only 1 hour outside to either shower or make a phone call. Never both. Game prioritized cleanliness over communication, so he didn't make many phone calls during this period. Instead, he spent his time reading and reflecting on his life choices.
Times worse because by default you go in by default you go into solitary confinement because they don't want any lawsuits from your family members if something happens to you. Because I was in a cell basically 24 hours a day, except the hour that you get out for either to make a phone call or take a shower. You have to choose. You don't get both.
Interestingly, Game noted how jail can make you more knowledgeable and introspective because you have so much time to think and read. But paradoxically, once you're out, you often slip back into the same behaviors that got you there in the first place.
It's always funny because when you're in jail, you always reflecting and reading and becoming more knowledgeable. Then when you get out, you just go right back to whatever he was doing, like he wasn't never in jail.
This was true for Game, who found himself entangled in legal issues repeatedly despite his best intentions to stay out of trouble. In 2011, Game's trouble streak continued when he was denied entry to Canada due to alleged gang ties in Los Angeles. Concert organizers claimed he was associated with the Bloods. Adding fuel to the fire, on August 12, 2011, Game pulled a stunt that went way wrong. He tweeted about a supposed internship opening to his over 580,000 followers, but included the emergency number for the Los Angeles Sheriff's Department. Chaos ensued as his fans jammed the emergency line for hours. Initially, Game denied any wrongdoing, calling the tweet a mistake, but then he doubled down, tweeting that the Sheriff's Department could track a tweet down, but you can't solve murders. This sparked a criminal investigation, with authorities considering charging him for obstruction of justice. However, after some back and forth, the Los Angeles Sheriff's Department decided not to pursue charges. Game apologized on CNN, saying, "My sincerest apologies to the Sheriff's Department, it was a joke gone wrong." Then on July 8, 2012, Game got into a public altercation with fellow West Coast rapper 40 Glock. Game recorded the incident on his iPhone, showing 40 Glock running into a bush after being beaten up. Game justified his actions by saying it was payback for Glock confronting rappers Lil Wayne and Plies with large entourages in the past. This led to a legal battle, with 40 Glock suing Game for $4.54 million for assault, battery, and damage to his reputation. Glock claimed $500,000 for pain and suffering, $500,000 for emotional distress, $750,000 for lost earnings, $2 million for punitive damages, $25,000 for medical expenses, and various other amounts. Glock also released a diss track called The Full Edit in December 2012. Game, in turn, criticized Glock in interviews, saying that filing a lawsuit like this ruins one's street credibility. In December 2012, the feud escalated when 40 Glock assaulted Game's manager Dante Tato Kid in Las Vegas. Although Glock won the lawsuit, he was only awarded $3,000. Fast forward to April 30th, 2014, Game and Atlanta rapper T.I. found themselves in a heated standoff with LAPD officers outside a nightclub. According to Billboard, the situation escalated because officers were roughing up a group of bystanders near the club. In a video leaked by TMZ, T.I. and Game were seen outside the club, which they called the Supercut Club, or Supper Club, clashing with LAPD officials. The club's security guards also refused to let the rappers back in to avoid more legal trouble. T.I. was heard shouting, "Y'all got a lot of people beat up. We got good lawyers." One bystander was forced to lie on the ground with his hands over his head, getting kicked repeatedly by security trying to make him stand up. Another guard yelled, "He goes to jail tonight." Rumors swirled that T.I. and Game were arrested for simple assault on a police officer and disturbing the peace, but these were later denied by LAPD. In 2016, Game faced another major legal issue when a judge ruled he was liable for S.A.ing Priscilla Rainey, a contestant on his VH1 reality show She Got Game. Rainey claimed that during what she thought was a film date, Game, who showed up highly intoxicated, S.A.'d her several times. This included him forcefully reaching his hand inside her dress to rub her bare V and buttocks. In 2019, an appellate court upheld the $7.1 million judgment against Game. However, Rainey stated that Game hadn't paid her any of the awarded money. She filed a motion to seize his income, and in April 2020, she was granted ownership of Game's independent record label, Prolific Records, and royalties from his 2019 album, Born to Rap. This gave Rainey full control over any salary Game would receive through his label. Despite this, Game publicly called Rainey a liar during an appearance on Complex's Everyday Struggle and insisted he would never pay her. On December 30th, 2023, Rainey was awarded $7 million after Game continued to refuse to pay the previous judgment. A month earlier, a claim by Rainey alleging that Game was creating shell companies to avoid payment was rejected. In 2017, Game pleaded no contest to assaulting an off-duty police officer during a basketball game at a Hollywood high school on March 29, 2015. Game, then 37, entered a no-contest plea to one misdemeanor count each of criminal threats and battery, and also pleaded no contest to one felony count of grand theft. He was immediately sentenced to 3 years of formal probation, 120 hours of community service, 26 anger management counseling sessions, and a 6-month suspended sentence. The altercation started when Game intentionally fouled the officer, who was on the opposing team, then sucker punched him after the officer stole the ball and scored. Game threatened to off the officer after being ejected from the game. On April 11, 2015, Game also grabbed and threatened a man filming him being served with legal papers outside his house and kept the man's camera. Now, if you thought the Game's lawsuits were wild, wait until you hear about his feuds. Ironically, the Game's biggest and longest running beef actually started because he didn't want a beef in the first place. It all began when Game signed with Aftermath Entertainment in 2003. Jimmy Iovine, the head honcho at Interscope, thought it would be a brilliant idea to place the young rapper into 50 Cent's G-Unit camp, which was dominating the rap scene at the time. But 50 Cent had a strict rule. If you were in G-Unit, you had to back him up in all his beefs, no questions asked. Game was cool with this for a while. He had no problem going after folks like Ja Rule and Joe Budden, but when it came to Fat Joe, Jadakiss, and Nas, he drew the line. Game didn't have any issues with these guys and didn't see the point in starting drama where there wasn't any. However, 50 wasn't having it. In a dramatic move that only 50 Cent could pull off, he kicked Game out of G-Unit live on the air during an interview at Hot 97. To make things even more chaotic, a shooting broke out outside the station involving Game's crew while the interview was happening. What followed was one of the longest and most intricate beefs in hip-hop history. There were dozens of diss tracks, some of which were actually pretty good. Game launched his infamous G-U-Not campaign, while 50 Cent released the G-Unit Radio 21, Hate It or Love It mixtape featuring a photoshopped image of Game in a thong, calling him a male stripper.
Y'all heard me do it, so make some noise, man. Don't hate me, I ain't the bad guy, man. Now play my black off you, spit in your face.
Peace treaties were suggested, mainly by Game, but none of them stuck. The feud also dragged in other G-Unit members like Tony Yayo, Young Buck, and Lloyd Banks, each contributing to the drama in their own ways. There were so many flare-ups and exchanges that it's impossible to cover them all in detail. Then there's the beef between Game and Jay-Z. This one is a bit murky because it's filled with vague disses and indirect jabs. It all started around 2004 when Game released West Side Story and mentioned that he didn't wear button-up shirts or drive Maybachs, which many thought was a shot at Jay-Z. Game denied it, claiming it was directed at J. Rule. Jay-Z, being the master of subtlety, didn't directly respond but seemed to take shots at Game in a Hot 97 freestyle, mentioning the word Game multiple times. Game, never one to back down, dissed Jay and Rockefeller publicly. This back and forth continued for years, with Game frequently taking shots at Jay-Z until around 2012 when he seemed to let it go. Jay-Z, for his part, only directly responded once during a live performance in 2009.
Talking about profit, I'm talking about pain. I'm talking about despair, I'm talking about shame. I ain't talking about gossip, I ain't talking about game. I ain't talking about Jimmy, I ain't talking about Dame.
Another notable feud involved Yuckmouth from Luniz, which also brought Suge Knight into the mix. The beef kicked off with a diss track from Yuckmouth, who claimed that Game had been slapped by Suge Knight. This drew Suge into the fray, largely because of his long-standing issues with Dr. Dre from their Death Row Records days. Yuckmouth later admitted that his real beef was with G-Unit as a whole, not specifically with Game. The 2005 West Coast Peace Summit, led by Snoop Dogg, helped to squash this beef, although Suge Knight didn't attend. Game, however, still had issues to settle, and dedicated a verse in his 2007 track My B to dissing Suge. And let's not forget about Joe Budden. Game has always been open about his gang-affiliated past, so when Joe Budden called out G-Unit as gangsta actors on a 2004 DJ Clue tape, Game took it personally. The situation was worsened when DJ Clue added a verse from Game to the song, making it seem like he was part of the track and leading to anger from 50 Cent. Game responded with a diss track called Buttons, and the two went back and forth for years before finally squashing the beef with a text message and a phone call. Budden later said that there was never a real issue between him and Game, but rather it was more about the broader G-Unit conflict. These are just a few examples of the many feuds Game has been involved in over the years. Despite claiming that all his beefs are now in the past and that he doesn't have time for that kind of drama anymore, fans remain skeptical. After all, Game is known for his fiery personality and unpredictable nature, so who knows what the future holds.